Greetings YouTube, the author Mark Simmons here, back for my 14th instalment of my readings from the Psionic Powers Trilogy. In this episode I'll be reading a snippet from chapter 12 of my second novel, Purged in Flame. In the story so far, the protagonist has been taken captive, but has managed to escape by climbing into a crawl space behind the walls, basically. So he's not escaped, but he is trying to evade capture, so to speak. Purged in Flame is available on Amazon via Poe Boy Publishing. As ever, I've not rehearsed this, so you get all the ers and the slurs and whatnot. So yeah, this is an extract from chapter 12, which is called Rat in the Walls. The space was roughly a metre wide. It felt tight against his chest and back, and it appeared that it hadn't been used in a long time. It was now haven to a multitude of spiders, as their cobwebs were crisscrossed in front of him in both directions. The path to his left looked much darker, so he decided to move to his right. And as he pushed his way through the cavity, his eyes began to adjust to the light, what little of it there was. Whether there was even a way out of the narrow corridors, only time would tell. He hoped that he was heading the right direction, though. The idea of going back the way he had come didn't fill him with confidence. It was only a matter of time before Keegan woke up. All things considered, though, he was happy that the inner wall did exist. Something tickled his nose again, so he moved his arm out sideways so that he could bring his hand towards his face. As his hand reached his nose, he realised that it was not a web that tickled him, but the creature that had created it. He lightly pulled the spider off his face and let it scamper into his palm. Phobias were a strange thing. Claustrophobia seemed to be a given for him, judging by his heavy breathing the confined space was causing him to have. Yet arachnophobia had never been a hindrance. He had suffered. Spiders had always held a certain intrigue to him. They were the patient killers of the insect world, creating intricate webs to trap and devour their prey. The one in his hand stood frozen as it considered the large mammal before it. Whitfield moved his hand over to one of the pipes next to him, and the arachnid ran onto it. However, as he looked at the floor, he could see defined pathways that had been cut through the dust, which made him feel uncomfortable. Musophobia was something that had been an issue throughout his life. He couldn't explain why, but rats, mice, hamsters, even rabbits, in fact any kind of rodent, any type of rodent sent shivers up his spine. He shook the feeling off as the fear of Keegan coming up behind him outweighed his fear of rats, so he continued forward through the gloom. A low moan ahead stopped him in his tracks, and he squinted into the distance to try and figure out what had caused it. The sound repeated itself and was followed by a rattling noise that Whitfield presumed could only be the pipes, so he moved onwards. The source of the noisy pipe work was soon next to his head, and as he passed it, his bare arm brushed against the metal. The hot pipe burnt into his flesh, but he forced his way past it as the image of Keegan's boot catching him in the face spurred him on. As he pressed himself around a tight corner, Whitfield noticed a small point of light up ahead. The sight quickened his pace, but he was pulled back by his shirt catching on a loose nail. Forgetting his clothes, he ripped the material away from the piece of metal so that he could get to the light source. As he got closer, his hopes of an exit sank. The light was coming from nothing more than a crack in the wall, and the beams coming through were made from natural light. He had lost track of time, but he was sure that it wasn't daytime yet. As he drew near, however, he could feel the heat coming off the rays. The sun must have come up. So what now? Going back was still not an option. Keegan's blood must have healed him, as he wasn't in much pain, as he should have been, but he didn't fancy another beating. The man was seriously unhinged. Whitfield had no illusions that he would take Whitfield had no illusions that he would take getting knocked out lightly, Whitfield had no illusions that he would take getting knocked out lightly and wouldn't have a problem with ignoring Barla's orders to keep him alive. His other option was to stay here and wait for nightfall. It was hardly an option. As soon as Keegan woke up, if he hadn't already, he would figure out where Whitfield had gone, and again a beating would soon follow. As he became ever more panicked about his situation, the beams of light faded in front of him. This confused Whitfield. Had the sun gone behind a cloud? The weather was less than agreeable in this country, but even at its greyest, he had never seen it get dark so quickly. Maybe it was a storm cloud. Whatever the cause, he wasn't going to pass up the opportunity and slid past the crack. There you go. Lots of ers and slurs in that one. Yeah, so that's it. The Keegan character is one of his captors, if that's the right word, who he knocked out to get away from, to get into the walls. So there you go. Purged in Flame is available on Amazon. The links for the US and UK versions will be in the body of this feature, along with my Facebook author page, my Instagram page, my Twitter page. Yeah, let me know what you think. If you liked it, let me know. If you didn't like it, let me know. And we'll, yeah, nothing else to say really. See you next time.